G'day, Professor Joseph Drew here from the University of Technology, Sydney. I'm giving you some advice about how to prepare a written submission to the Boundaries Commission. Now, we need to be very clear here that submissions you've done previously, back in January, or things you wrote on the survey from the other night when I was down there, we're not talking about these things. The Boundaries Commission in all likelihood will ask for written submissions. At that stage, whether you've written something in the past or not, you need to sit down again and write something very clearly to the Boundaries Commission about what your particular position is. And for your voice to be taken seriously and listened to, you need to ensure that when you write about your position, you refer to the legislation, because the Boundaries Commission must make their decision based on the legislation. And if they are buried in paper, which is what I want them to be, I want them to have no doubt about the opinions of the people in both communities, and the paper trail refers specifically to the legislation, it will make it very clear what the decision has to be. And under the law, they will generally have little choice in the way they propose to decide things. So it's up to everyone, me, your council staff, your councillors, each person in the community, to make sure that everyone who wants their voice heard sits down, makes a written submission in the format that I'm about to discuss with you. If you don't put your view down in writing, you will in all likelihood be ignored like you were last time. Do not rely on turning up and saying things on the day and that being held as evidence. Put it in writing. Let's bury them in paper, leave them in no doubt about what everyone in each community wants done and why they want it done. So, my proposal to you is a single piece of paper. No one wants to read pages and pages and pages. Single piece of paper in this sort of format. It doesn't have to be precisely these words. 1 or 2 lines maximum. I want to stay amalgamated or be de-amalgamated, whatever your position is, because I believe, and here you will refer to 1 or 2 of the matters that are covered in the legislation that the Boundaries Commission must base their decision on, and I will go through them very, very shortly. So, I have been through this legislation before with you in one of the very early videos. These are the things that the decision must be based on. Financial advantages or disadvantages. So you might write, I want to stay amalgamated because I believe there's a financial advantages in doing so. Or you might write, I want to be de-amalgamated because I've been provided with clear evidence of financial advantages arising from de-amalgamation. Do you see how these sentences get put together? Now, on this point, while I'm thinking about it, the final draft of the Boundaries Commission report I did for Council will be out Monday. I want it to be on public display as soon as possible after that time, preferably Monday afternoon. You'll be able to get it on the website, I hope, and you'll be able to read that and cite specific evidence from that report. We don't want anyone to be dismissed by the Boundaries Commission. If you're citing evidence, if you're citing robust financial evidence, it's going to be incredibly difficult for anyone to dismiss you, no matter what your opinion is. Remember, I'm not personally invested in this. I don't bear the consequences of what happens. All I can do is get the facts out to you, which is what I've been trying hard to do. It's now up to you guys to make your views known in a way that can't be ignored. So your reason might instead be about the community interest or the geographic cohesion. So you might say, I want to stay amalgamated because there's a strong community of interest between Cootamundra and Gundagai people and the geography is very cohesive. Or you might say, I want to be de-amalgamated because the Gundagai and Cootamundra don't have much in common, and there's a pretty ordinary road and a 48-kilometre distance between the two towns. You need to address these things. Hopefully people will be addressing different aspects of the legislation. You could talk about historical or traditional values. You could talk about the attitudes of residents. I think that's very important. Last time people ignored survey evidence and made up their own quite strange and silly ideas about what the attitudes of residents are. If you have an attitude, if you believe you know the attitude of others, that might be the reason you refer to in your written submission. You might talk about the ability of council to provide adequate, equitable and appropriate services. Now, I told you quite clearly on the forum, by the government's own metrics, Cootamundra-Gundagai Council is not a long-term financially sustainable entity. You might refer to that in your submission. You might talk about impacts on employment, impacts on rural communities. You might talk about number 9, it's not terribly helpful. You might talk about, though, number 10, which is the ability of each community to be represented under the current structure or under the de-amalgamated structure. You might believe that de-amalgamated councils will make it easier for each community to be effectively represented. If you do, use that as your reason. You might refer to efficiency and effectiveness, and I gave you lots of data on efficiency, and when the report is made public in a few days' time, you'll be able to cite that data. Whatever you do, though, make a written submission. If you know someone that hasn't, you know someone that's differing about doing it, make them put down in writing what their view is. It's important that anyone that wants to be heard is heard. It's important that we're not ignored this time, that your views are taken seriously, because it's you, your community, that will bear the consequences of this decision. Council will get the information out to you about when these written submissions are due and how to make the written submissions. I will do a short video too. You will definitely know. Don't be in any fear of that, and we'll definitely make sure this time that you're heard. Thank you very much for your time.